In this workbook, there is a macro that is designed to work on column B and make the first 3 rows of an entry be bold, the next 3 italic, next 3 bold, and so on. This macro is in place. Press Alt F11 to take a look at it. We're in a workbook called doloops, and here is that macro. It's called bold italic, and it is familiar to you if you've seen the previous movie. This kind of macro code here, using a for loop, makes perfect sense if there are 51 entries or fewer. Doesn't make any difference. If there are fewer, that's okay. Eventually, maybe the list will have that many sets of names. However, what if we have a series of data and the amount will vary, perhaps from month to month? Maybe we're envisioning a list that we copy to this worksheet at different times. It's not always going to be the same length. We need to consider some other structures to handle information, even when we don't know how many rows of data are going to exist. And we're talking about some variations on a term called do loop. It's similar to a for loop as we see it here, but different in the sense that it has more flexibility. And as I jump back into the Excel environment with Alt F11, the current macro is set up to run in this particular worksheet called short list. For the moment, it has only 42 rows, and that's only 7 sets of names, but eventually there will be 51 sets of names here. The October list here is substantially larger. It goes down 2,400 rows, and conceivably it's going to grow too, or shrink. We don't know necessarily. We want to cover all of our bases to take the existing macro and alter it so that it handles data no matter how many entries there are. Now, in this example, what we're doing is fairly innocuous. It's not that critical, but the focus here is on the concept and how we set up the syntax and alter the code in Visual Basic to make this process work repeatedly. I don't need to tell you that an Excel worksheet has 1,000,000 rows. We might have a lot of data here eventually. Now, as is frequently convenient, it will be good to see the code window and the worksheet together. Let's change the display in the upper right-hand corner, that middle button, either restore down or maximize and drag the edges. And if you're not in the Visual Basic environment, press Alt F11. Do the same sort of thing here so that our screens are sharing roughly 50% of the space each. Now, here's what we'd like to do. Recognizing that the for construction here works fine if we know exactly how many entries are going to be here. So we're going to introduce the concept of a do loop. And there are a number of different variations on this. We'll show you 2 major ones. This construction actually ends with the word loop. We'll put that in first. Notice I didn't capitalize it. When I click elsewhere, it will become capitalized. And this construction starts off with the word do. No noun follows it, however. For some people, it looks a little bit strange. By implication, we want to do everything from the next line until we see the word loop. And one of the words that we can use here is while. Now, switching to English for the moment, how do we want to say this? We want to do these actions while there is data present. Well, we can't say it quite that way, but we can use the term active cell. By the way, you spell this as one word. When we eventually press enter or click on a different line, the A and the C will become capitalized in there. So as we move through the data, we want to do these actions while the active cell has data in it. Can't quite say it that way, but we can say if it's not equal to blank. And not equal to, similar to what we use in regular Excel and functions, the less than arrow followed by the greater than arrow. This means not equal to. So we want to take these actions as long as the active cell is not equal to blank. How do we do that? Double quote, double quote. I just clicked somewhere and you saw the capitalization take place automatically. This will work, but it's probably not the best way to say this. It's a little bit awkward to read. Why don't we change the equal sign? Or can we just come along and change that? If we change it to equal, then the wording wouldn't make sense. But there's another word we could conceivably use here. I'm not suggesting in any way you come along and just make up words, but the opposite of while in Visual Basic Code here is until. So how do we want to say this now? We want to take these actions until the active cell equals empty. And I think for many people, that's a lot clearer. So this would be a better construction than the one we just saw. Do all of these actions until you see the word loop. Keep doing these over and over and over again until the active cell is empty. Now, recognize too that in the code here, we're moving down the worksheet. This line right here means move from the active cell down 3 rows. And this code here does the same thing. So as we repeat the process, we're moving down the worksheet 3 rows at a time with those 2 statements. Now, another variation on this, and perhaps clearer to many people, and certainly more readable, is to introduce a word you wouldn't necessarily know, but as soon as we see it, you'll know what it means. I'm going to type the phrase is empty, left parenthesis, and take off the remaining portion of the code to the right here and put in a right parenthesis. And as soon as I either press enter or click on a different line, watch the upper lowercase change, and this will work. And for many people, this is the clearest of the 3 variations here. And in English, we are saying perform these actions repeatedly until the active cell is empty. So let's try this on our short list. For the moment, in the original data, see at the bottom of the screen, it looks as if we've got bold and italic there already. So why don't we manually click column B, go to the Home tab here, click B, click it again, click I. There we go. Nothing here is bold or italic, and we can run this macro. Active cell is anywhere because the macro automatically starts at B1. There's no keystroke shortcut, so we'll use the View tab, rightmost button, macros, View macros. We're looking for bold italic. There it is. Let's run. Looks like it did the job. And notice that it did stop just below the data. Well, let's try this on October lists. Now this is 2,400 rows, not 42 rows. So active cell is anywhere. Notice that we're not changing the macro at all. We're not indicating which worksheet we're in, but I manually put the active cell on a different worksheet. And let's run this macro again. Of course, in a real life situation, we would either have a keystroke shortcut associated with it, possibly a button right here in the worksheet. For the moment, we don't have that. We'll click the macros button, View macros. Let's run this macro again. Double click that or click run. Watch it happen. 2,400 rows. It's done. There it is. And it stopped just below the data. And you might experiment with certain macros from time to time. And I've done this at different times where I simply copied this data, doubled it, copied it all again, quadrupled it, just to see how fast it would work. And many, many times it's almost as fast when you have more data. And we'll see a bit later also, there is a way to make macros run even faster. But the key idea here is that the do loop construction, commonly used in certain kinds of macros, is ideal when we don't necessarily know how many records or rows we're going to be dealing with. And particularly if the lists that we're using here are going to vary, this is exactly what we need to use.